In our headlines on this Wednesday afternoon, March 6th, here in South Korea. The government seeks police investigations into officials at the Korean Medical Association as thousands of their junior counterparts now face proceedings aimed at suspending their licenses. Also, on the local front, consumer prices rose higher than expected in February, climbing 3.1% on year and reversing 3 straight months of deceleration. Meanwhile, Republicans and Democrats in many American states cast their ballots on Tuesday for their presidential candidates ahead of the actual race in November this year. Thousands of doctors in training now face proceedings aimed at suspending their medical licenses as the government here also ponders over police investigations into leading members of the medical walkout. Our Shin Se-byuk has the latest.
The government on Wednesday is continuing its administrative measures against trainee doctors who have not returned to work in defiance of a return-to-work order. Tuesday saw the start of disciplinary action against approximately 7,000 trainee doctors. The health ministry had gathered evidence of their non-compliance during a 2-day on-site inspection of 100 major hospitals on March 4th and 5th. The government began sending out preliminary notices about the administrative processes facing these doctors. Following the issuance of notices, doctors will have a 2-week period to submit their defenses through written statements. Should administrative actions be upheld, their medical licenses will be suspended for 3 months. The health ministry is also mulling over whether to file a criminal complaint with police against some junior doctors who led the massive walkout, but the exact details have not yet been decided. Trainee doctors in South Korea began walkouts on February 20th against the government's planned increase in the medical school admissions quota. As of 8 p.m. on Monday, more than 90% of resident doctors, around 8,900, were still absent from their post nationwide. Amid continuing disruption to medical services, 5 major hospitals in Seoul, including Seoul National University Hospital, said they are exploring the possibility of merging wards to enhance the efficiency of patient care. With the medical system being restructured to focus on patients with critical or emergency needs, there is a plan to treat patients with less urgent conditions in a single ward, much like the approach taken during the COVID-19 pandemic. Other hospitals across the country are also considering either not operating certain medical departments or merging wards. Meanwhile, police on Wednesday summoned Ju Soo-ho, spokesperson of the Korean Medical Association Emergency Committee, for questioning. Last Tuesday, the health ministry lodged a formal complaint with police against 5 officials from the KMA, accusing them of multiple offenses such as violating medical laws and disrupting operations. Following this, police investigators conducted searches at the offices of these 5 officials and the KMA's emergency committee to collect related evidence, while also imposing travel restrictions on the officials, preventing them from leaving the country. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Also, on the local front, consumer prices accelerated 3.1% on year last month, reversing 3 months of deceleration and prompting Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok to share tangible countermeasures. Our Park Gun-woo has details.
Consumer prices in South Korea once again rose by over 3% on year last month, mainly due to higher prices for agricultural products and unstable oil prices. According to data released by Statistics Korea on Wednesday, the country's consumer price index, a key gauge of inflation, rose 3.1% in February compared to the same month a year ago. Consumer prices reached 3.8% on year in October. That was followed by consecutive monthly decreases until last month's jump. Prices for agricultural products, energy, industrial products, and services were all up on year in February, with agricultural products and energy mainly driving the overall increase, rising 11.4% and 4.9% respectively. And with consumer prices remaining high, Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok spoke about ways to tackle the issue at an economic meeting held with related ministers on Wednesday morning.
The government will do its very best to bring consumer prices to the 2% range as soon as possible by taking the recent rise seriously.
He said the government will provide 60 billion won, or roughly 45 million US dollars worth of support for discounts on agricultural, livestock, and fishery products in March and April, dropping the price of major food items, including apples and pears, by 40 to 50%. Lowering tariffs on imported fruit, monitoring prices by item daily, and continuing inspections at gas stations were other ways he said would be used to address the situation. While saying ingredient prices have dropped by about half compared to highs seen in 2022, he added companies should lower the prices of products accordingly, just as they did to raise them when ingredient prices got higher. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
Korea's foreign exchange reserves fell in February. According to the Bank of Korea earlier on this Wednesday, the country's foreign exchange reserves, a barometer of its financial stability, stood at over $415 billion at the end of February. Now, the sum is down $30 million on month and marks the second straight month of decline. The bank is linking the fall to the dollar index, which gained 0.6% last month against major currencies. Also, as of the end of January, South Korea is the world's 9th largest holder of foreign exchange reserves. Over in the U.S., Bitcoin set a fresh record in early trading on Tuesday before retreating later in the day amid profit-taking. Our Lee Seung-jae has the numbers.
The price of Bitcoin continues to soar, this time reaching an all-time high on Tuesday. According to U.S. crypto exchange Coinbase, the price of one Bitcoin hit $69,225 as it surged 4% in 24 hours. That meant the largest cryptocurrency by market cap surpassed a previous record of $68,990 set in November 2021, before profit-taking led to prices falling below $60,000 at one point. Still, Bitcoin has surged 160% since last October and has risen more than 40% in February alone. Bitcoin has also gone up nearly 400% since November 2022, when it plummeted to the $16,000 range due to the collapse of the Terra USD and Luna, as well as the bankruptcy filed by virtual currency exchange FTX. Bitcoin's all-time high was largely driven by the U.S. regulators' approval of the spot exchange-traded fund and large-scale capital inflow through it. In January, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission approved 11 spot ETFs applied by BlackRock, the world's largest asset management company. According to Bloomberg News, since the introduction of the Bitcoin ETF, the net inflow through BlackRock and Fidelity Investments amounted to $7.35 billion. But also driving up the prices is the Bitcoin halving in April. With the total supply of Bitcoin set at 21 million, of which 19 million have already been mined, once the split occurs, the rewards given to miners will also be reduced by half. Some economists say that the easing of sentiment toward risky assets, the New York stock market hitting an all-time high, and the expectation that the U.S. Fed will cut interest rates all contributed to Bitcoin's rise and may continue to push its prices higher. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Back here in Korea, in his opening address at the government's 17th session of policy briefings open to the public earlier on Tuesday, President Yoon Suk-yeol turned the spotlight onto the nation's youth, vowing to back academic pursuits, child support and tax breaks for childbirth incentives. Our presidential correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
The South Korean government is expanding its national scholarship program so that 1.5 million college students will be eligible, up from the current 1 million. That's more than half of slightly more than 2 million enrolled college students. The announcement came as President Yoon Suk-yeol held a policy discussion in the city of Gwangmyeong in Gyeonggi-do province on empowering young people.
먼저 청년들이 희망을 가질 수 있어야 나라의 미래도 열어갈 수 있습니다. 청년들이 걱정 없이 공부하고 일하며 꿈을 키우고 미래를 준비할 수 있도록 하겠습니다.
In addition, work-study programs will expand. By 2025, 200,000 students will be able to participate. And a new, quote, housing scholarship will provide students with up to 2,400,000 Korean won annually. That's about $1,800 US. The government will also open up the Youth Leap account to more people. The savings account is for 19 to 34-year-olds earning up to 60 million won or around $46,000, allowing savings of up to $38,000 after 5 years with an interest rate of 6%. The income limit will increase to include more people.
그야말로 재정 투자를 했을 때 투자 효과가 엄청나게 큰 겁니다. 그야말로 청년들에 대한 이런 약간의 투자는 그야말로 돈 되는 장사다 이 말입니다.
President Yoon also emphasized direct involvement of young people in shaping government policy, saying they're able to see the world fairly and just. Meanwhile, it wasn't just about the opportunities, but it was also about the struggles, including single mothers struggling to receive child support from their former husbands.
Especially if the introduction of the advance payment system is introduced, the state will pay child support up front and then ensures that it be collected from the non-custodial parent. I believe it's important to instill a sense of responsibility in non-custodial parents towards their children.
This was President Yoon's pledge during the campaign, and an official from the Ministry of Family answered that relevant ministries are shaping practical measures to make this possible by the second half of next year. Also at the discussion, the government announced that it will not be taxing the childbirth incentives being given by private companies. This is an ongoing effort by the private sector to tackle the current low birth rate. 김도연, Arirang News.
Korea's Navy and Marine Corps are taking part in this year's multinational exercise dubbed Cobra Gold over in Thailand. The exercise includes the joint training of around 40 elite recon personnel from South Korea, the US and Thailand. It also involves maximizing operational capabilities in combat and survival in the jungle. Beyond defense drills, the Cobra Gold also delves into humanitarian activities such as building schools for local children. The South Korean service members are scheduled to return home on March 17th. Meanwhile, Seoul has tapped its point man for talks with Washington on defense cost sharing, which are expected to start relatively early this time around, sparking quite a bit of speculation. Our foreign affairs correspondent Pei Eun-ji tells us why.
South Korea has appointed a veteran diplomat as the chief negotiator for a new round of talks on defense cost sharing with the U.S. Lee Tae-woo, who previously served as the consul general in Sydney, will lead the country's delegation consisting of relevant authorities from the ministries of Foreign Affairs, Defense and Finance. The team will hold talks with a U.S. delegation led by Linda Specht, a senior advisor and U.S. lead negotiator for security agreements at the State Department.
I feel the heavy weight on my shoulders, but I will do my best to ensure that a rational level of defense cost sharing is achieved to provide a stable stationing environment for the deployment of U.S. forces Korea, an essential element of combined defense posture between South Korea and the U.S.
Since 1991, South Korea has been shouldering the costs needed for U.S. troops to be stationed in Korea, including labor, logistics, and construction costs. The two countries have regularly held talks on how to share these costs, and the upcoming talks will be the 12th. The most recent deal was signed in 2021 and will be effective until the end of next year. With almost 2 years left before it expires, it's unusual for the two countries to begin negotiations again. This is widely seen as a move aimed at reaching an agreement before the possible re-election of former U.S. President Donald Trump, who during his presidency had accused South Korea of free riding, demanding it pay as much as $5 billion a year. But the foreign ministry has denied the speculation, saying early preparation has nothing to do with the election in November.
There have been cases in the past where defense cost-sharing talks took a considerable amount of time. Considering these circumstances, a representative has been appointed to allow sufficient time before the next round of negotiations.
More than 28,000 American troops are currently stationed in South Korea, as part of efforts to deter North Korea's nuclear threat and to strengthen combined readiness. Peunji, Arirang News.
Over in Montenegro, an appeals court has overturned an earlier ruling to extradite disgraced entrepreneur Kwon Do-hyung to the U.S., raising the possibility of an extradition to South Korea to face corruption charges. Kwon was arrested almost a year ago amid an international arrest warrant that is, in connection to a $40 billion collapse of Terraform Labs cryptocurrency. Both South Korea and the U.S. had called for his extradition. Accordingly, the court has cited issues over proceedings with regard to which country was the first to file the extradition request. In the U.S., American voters are ending a crucial day on this Tuesday ahead of the November presidential election as many states open polling stations to pick their party candidates. Our Choi Min-jung has more.
March 5th is Super Tuesday over in the U.S., the biggest day of the 2024 presidential primaries or caucuses. Projected results are rolling in as President Joe Biden and his predecessor, Donald Trump, dominate the Democrat and Republican contests.
I think we really need somebody, a super strong figure in the White House for international relations.
He's a fraudster. He's been accused of sexually abusing a woman and found guilty of that. He's got over $500 million worth of fines and penalties.
According to AP projections, both Biden and Trump are expected to win the majority of their respective primaries, including in Texas, Virginia, and North Carolina. As of just after 11 p.m. Eastern Time, CNN projections show that Biden has been victorious in all 15 Democratic contests, while Trump has won the Republican vote in at least 12 states. Super Tuesday usually offers a glimpse into which candidates will run in the final race for the White House. But as the projections show, there's much less suspense this year. Tuesday's results are only likely to intensify the rivalry between Biden and Trump as they head towards a rematch in the general elections in November. On Super Tuesday, voters from 15 states and 1 U.S. territory are choosing their presidential candidate, with the largest number of states voting on the same day in the presidential primary calendar. California and Texas, the most populous states in the U.S., are among the 15 holding the nominating contests. Over a third of the total delegates, which are awarded to the most popular Republican and Democratic candidates, are up for grabs. Meanwhile, on the big day, Facebook, Instagram, and other meta platforms suffered an outage spanning multiple countries, including the U.S., the U.K., and Canada. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Despite efforts by mediators, prospects of a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas ahead of the Islamic holy month of Ramadan are looking grim. Our Yoon explains.
International mediators from the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar have been in negotiation with Hamas for a ceasefire in Gaza. The mediators have been trying to come to an agreement where Hamas would release Israeli hostages in return for a 6-week ceasefire, the release of some Palestinian prisoners, and more aid to Gaza. But the 3 days of negotiations failed to make a breakthrough on Tuesday. This comes less than a week before the start of Ramadan, the Muslim fasting month, which had been the informal deadline for a deal. Israel has demanded Hamas hand over a list of captives who are alive, as well as the captive-to-prisoner ratio it seeks in any release deal, to which Hamas has said the group did not have information on which captives were alive or dead. They also said the captives were being held by numerous groups in multiple locations. At a press conference in Beirut on Tuesday, senior Hamas official Osama Hamdan said that his group wants a permanent ceasefire rather than a pause and a complete withdrawal of Israeli forces.
We reiterate that what the enemy failed to achieve on the battlefield, he will not achieve at the negotiating table. The security and safety of our people will not be achieved except with a permanent ceasefire, the end of the aggression, and the withdrawal from every inch of the Gaza Strip. Providing urgent and appropriate shelter and bringing aid to our people in Gaza is our top priority, and any exchange of prisoners cannot take place before all this is achieved.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has publicly rejected such demands, pledging that the war would go on until Hamas is dismantled and all the captives are returned. Israel did not send a delegation to the latest round of talks due to Hamas not providing the hostage list.
With the fasting month of Ramadan, which starts on March 10th, Hamas negotiators agreed on Tuesday to stay for at least one more day of talks. Palestinian-Israeli violence has spiked during Ramadan in previous years, creating a strong incentive for leaders to reach a deal before next week. 이은진, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. The chief of the Kremlin's Foreign Intelligence Service said Tuesday that Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny died of natural causes when asked about whether any forces in the West had been involved in the death of Vladimir Putin's most prominent opponent. Russian spy chief Sergei Naryshkin said sooner or later life ends and people die, adding that the vocal reactions in the West to Navalny's death were revolting. The head of Ukraine's defense intelligence said in February that Navalny died from a blood clot, denying speculation that he was killed while in prison. Navalny died last month at the age of 47 in an Arctic prison. His supporters alleged he had been murdered. The Kremlin has denied involvement in his death. Tesla's European gigafactory in Germany's capital Berlin has halted production after a fire broke out at a nearby power pylon. Police investigations are being carried out with the suspicions of a possible arson attack. Local media had published a letter claiming responsibility for the suspected arson attack from the website of a far-left militant group called the Volcano Group. Emergency services have extinguished the blaze and power to the surrounding communities has mostly been restored. The outage and shuttered production are expected to cost Tesla hundreds of millions of euros. Over 100 illegally trafficked poisonous frogs have been released back into the wild in Colombia. Bogota's Ministry of the Environment oversaw the relocation of the endangered toxic frogs from the Colombian capital back to their rainforest habitat. Last month, a Brazilian woman had been caught at an airport in Bogota trying to smuggle the frogs into Brazil. According to local police, the endangered species is sought after in international markets by collectors who pay up to $1,000 per frog. 최지희, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. It's a cloudy and wet day for many parts of Korea. It won't rain much, but those on the East Coast and Jeju Island need to keep an umbrella handy today. However, mountainous regions in Gangwon-do need to brace for more winter storms, with up to 8 centimeters in the forecast. A heavy snow advisory was lifted this morning, but do stay on high alert. We had a tad chillier start to the day, then highs are going up similar to yesterday in central regions, topping out at 11 degrees Celsius here in Seoul and over in Daejeon. Meanwhile, southern provinces have highs going 1 to 5 degrees higher than yesterday, and it will get cloudier as the day goes on. Meanwhile, parts of Jeju and the south coast are under a strong wind advisory. Haven't we had enough of wet and cloudy days? Well, more wet and cloudy weather is in the forecast for tomorrow in central parts of the country. Sunnier conditions return just in time for the weekend, but along with spring cold. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
And those are the top stories at this hour here in Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, so do stay with us.
Lotte takes a new leap beyond its boundaries. Our change will lead to better lives for all. New Lotte, the power of a better world. New today, better tomorrow. Lotte.
Starting this year, Korea has a new visa, known as the Digital Nomad Visa, that seeks to offer foreigners the chance to work remotely and travel broadly in the country for a longer period of time. So what exactly is a digital nomad? What are the benefits of being a digital nomad? And what are the requirements for Korea's Digital Nomad Visa? A growing number of young people are choosing to move beyond the confines of cubicles for work and for travel. That being said, for more on the life of digital nomads, I have Cho Jung-hyun, founder of the online community Digital Nomads Korea, here in the studio. Jung-hyun, welcome.
Nice to meet you.
I also have Kwon Soa with us. Soa, welcome back.
Hello, Sunny.
And before we turn to Jung-hyun, first, Soa, let's begin with a definition of the phrase digital nomad.
Right. A digital nomad is someone who can work from anywhere, so meaning traveling from place to place, if technology and internet is available. Digital nomads work at temporary accommodations, hotels, coffee shops, libraries, co-working spaces, camping cars, you name it. Some have a home base, some not. Now, while this lifestyle was followed by people since the 1980s, the term started to gain popularity a decade later, driven by technological advancement, including the wide use of mobile devices. And today, with some 35 million digital nomads worldwide, digital nomadism is reshaping the way people think about work and travel. A digital nomad can be a freelancer, but also a full-time employed or self-employed person. And jobs range from designer, blogger, content creator, writer, programmer, teacher, accountant, and so forth. But our Jung-hyun is going to have more on that later on. Now, why do people choose to become digital nomads? Probably the biggest advantage is freedom. You get to work wherever you want and at what time you want. And other benefits, or actually benefits that stem from that freedom maybe, are productivity, creativity, motivation, the ability to become more adaptable, and more opportunities to explore. And those are actually benefits basically that you gain from traveling around.
Right then, Chung, keeping in mind what Flora has just said, she mentioned one benefit of being a digital nomad. And before we delve into your efforts to enhance the life of digital nomads here in Korea, what more can you tell us about the benefits of being a digital nomad, and what is your personal take on this choice of life and work?
Yeah, as Soa mentioned, being a digital nomad have so many great perks. Like you have a choice, you can choose where to live and where to work and who to be around with. So you get to have a control of how you want to live your life. For example, you don't have to live in big cities for your work. You can move to a smaller town where it's cheaper and maybe close to nature. You can also live in a different country and travel at the same time, like digital nomads. So when I used to work for a company before starting my company, I could only travel using my vacation time, which is in Korea like 14 to 15 days. So I had to schedule my vacation time very tight to travel. But as a digital nomad, you don't have to worry anything about that. So you can travel at your own speed. And that means you can also meet a lot of local people and really be into the community, immersed into the community. So if you happen to fall in love with one place, you can just easily extend your stay and stay longer. So right now as an entrepreneur, I'm very flexible with my time. So I can decide to just go to Vietnam or Thailand and stay there during the winter, cold winter in Seoul. But at the moment, I have a lot of business going on in Korea, so I cannot fully become a digital nomad. But if I have a choice, I would definitely spend more time as a digital nomad.
Right. And so, perhaps very well aware of the benefits of being a digital nomad, the Korean government has launched a digital nomad visa starting this year. Do give us a bit more details about that.
Sure. So that's the digital nomad visa, or also referred to as the workation visa, which was launched on January 1st this year. And it's a test operation until December 31st this year for now. And this visa will allow foreigners who are employed overseas to work remotely in Korea for up to 2 years. First for 1 year, after which the visa can be extended for another one. And that's much longer than the 90 days foreigners could stay either without or with a tourist visa. However, there need to be specific requirements to apply for the new digital nomad visa. A person has to be employed by a foreign company for more than a year, or has to own a foreign company for more than a year, and of course has to be able to work remotely. And you have to make a significant amount of money in your country. Applicants must earn more than twice the Korean gross national income per capita of the previous year, as announced by Korea's central bank. So for this year, that would mean an annual income of at least 85 million won, or around $65,000 US. Apart from that, you will need documents like a criminal record certificate, so probably showing that you do not have any crimes in the past, and also medical insurance as well. Accepted applicants can accompany immediate family members who do not need an additional visa. Children, however, have to be under the age of 18, and the applicant himself or herself needs to be above 18. In the first month, 7 applications were submitted, among which one person's application was said to have been accepted. Korea is not a front runner, actually, when it comes to digital nomad visas. As of October last year, 38 countries already implemented such programs.
Right, I see. Right then, Changyeon, I understand you created now an online platform in support of digital nomads here in Korea. Could you tell us a bit about your platform, and what was the response within that platform with regard to the government's digital nomad visa?
Yeah, so a year ago, my company Hopper started the Digital Nomads Korea community. So we had this initiative. We should make South Korea the next digital nomad destination. So I started the community because I looked into other countries where there are a lot of digital nomads, and it seemed like the key to the success of attracting digital nomads is having a great community. And since I looked up online and there were not specific community for digital nomads, I decided to start one myself. So right now, our community is a mix of international and local digital nomads, and we run an online community and also operate like offline meetup events based in Seoul. And we also share useful information through our Instagram channels and our website. So regarding your question about the response to the visa, since the visa was announced, it has become like the hottest topic in our community. We have an onboarding survey to join our community, and now it's around reaching 1,500 people signing up. And we asked the question, are you interested in digital nomad visa? And more than 80% answered yes. So we could see from this data that a lot of people are interested in the digital nomad visa. But Soa mentioned there was the news that in January there were only 7 people applied and only 1 got accepted. And I could explain you this. It's because it's just the beginning. Although there are a lot of interest, the application process is not like very clear at the moment, and administration system was not like very friendly yet. And now we've been talking with the government, and they replied, and I think there will be a lot of improvement now. So yeah, I hope there will be a lot more application being approved in the future. And also regarding the income requirement, I think it will be great. The government could alleviate, and I think it's possible because it's just a pilot stage now. So if it's if it gets more alleviated, like the income requirement is lower, then I think this will open the opportunity to a lot more people.
Right, so for now the requirement is an annual amount of 85 billion won.
Yes,
then.
yeah.
Right, I see. Chang-yeon, many claim that the pandemic served to boost the number of digital nomads. Is this true?
Yeah.
Based on what you've observed?
I agree. The pandemic definitely accelerated the increase of digital nomads. So during COVID, many people were allowed to work from home, and this made them realize, oh, I can actually work remotely and be very efficient. So, and then after the pandemic, the travel restriction eased, and people were like, why am I working from home? Like, I should go travel around. Like, I could just bring my laptop and work. So this really, the pandemic really became the game changer. And some companies are trying to bring their employees back to the office. But honestly, like, once you experience this, once you're exposed to this culture, it's really hard to go back to the old ways, the cubicle. And also there are now a lot more companies opening like remote working jobs. And this is because a lot of young talents want this, like flexible work arrangements. So looking at this, I think this is going to be a keep going trend.
Right. Yeah. Chang-yeon, do you suppose there are specific jobs that are more suitable for a digital nomad? I mean, So-won mentioned a couple, but I was wondering if there are more that you could add to that.
So looking into our community, the most common jobs are IT developers, and there's also a lot of marketers and designers who can work freelance as a freelancer. And also there's a lot of entrepreneurs, I think this is specifically in Korea, and also freelancers. So it's basically people either run their own company or they're allowed to work full-time for a company, full-time remotely for a company, so they can travel. And also in Korea, I think there's specifically a lot of number of people involved in the startup scenes and the blockchain industry.
Oh, I see. Are most of the digital nomads on your platform relatively young adults?
Yeah, 20s and 30s.
Right, so it's a preference among them then?
Yeah, it's a new trend. So people who are in the early career or have a little bit of experience to maybe ask their boss, like, I want to go remote. They are the target, like they are the main customers.
Right, I see. So some pundits believe that the digital nomad visa launched by the South Korean government itself is an attempt to better tackle the country's low birth rate. What more can you add?
Right, Korea's chronic low birth rate really seems to be related to just any policy that we talk about these days. That's why we always, this topic itself comes up a lot. And just like the principle in trying to welcome more immigrants, students, foreign workers, and travelers to Korea, there are hopes that the digital nomad visa will be of help to the country's demographics if the workation ends up in wanting the foreigners to stay longer in Korea and with that become a resident. According to Statistics Korea, the birth rate in 2023 stood at 0.72, another drop from 0.78 the previous year. In the October to December period last year, an all-time quarterly low of 0.65 was recorded as well. Experts say with the implementation of the new digital nomad visa, the government may want to lead discussions into the normalization of social mix between Koreans and non-Koreans, meaning welcoming more digital nomads into Korea may increase interracial relationships and with that contribute to the low birth rate. Korea is perceived as a homogeneous society and international couples are still quite rare here in the country.
Right, and that being said, Chang-yeon, what other gains do you suppose does the Korean government look to garner amid a greater presence, of course, of digital nomads here in the country?
So I think the Korean government sees a great opportunity by inviting digital nomads. So it's not only about the economic boost from the long-term and wealthy travelers, but I believe there's a bigger gain. So I think it's to tackle the population decline and to revitalize the regional area. When I mean by regional area, it means the other part of the country beyond Seoul. So because everyone is trying to live in Seoul, the other regions are very losing its population. And even Busan, the second biggest city in Korea, is losing its population. So that that can show that how serious this problem is. So to tackle this problem during the pandemic, Korean government initiated the workation program. So it's a term to describe the work culture where you can work remotely in a different city, enjoying the balance of work and life, work and vacation. So workation program in Korea started to target companies in the capital area to send their employees to the regional area to work remotely. And because this can boost their local economy and they could be like a short-term population there. And I think the digital nomad visa, which is also called the workation visa, is a step towards this direction. So it's trying to make Korea more inviting for nomads and addressing the challenges of the regional development in the country.
Right.
Yeah.
And that being said, Chang-yeon, what do you suppose do digital nomads who decide to station themselves here in Korea look to gain?
So I think Korea has a lot to offer for digital nomads. So digital nomads are very tech-savvy people, and Korea is perfect for this type of people because Korea is well known for its advanced technology and fast internet, even in the rural areas. And this is a big attraction point. We also have a lot of laptop-friendly cafes where you can just bring laptop and use free internet and enjoying the coffee. And this is something digital nomads are crazy about. Additionally, Korean cities are also very safe and vibrant. Digital nomads often have to work in the late night because of the time zone difference. And they're just really happy about that they can order delivery food in the middle of the night and they can just stroll around the city safely and everything is still open. So this is something Korea can offer to digital nomads.
Right, for sure, I'm sure. So what are some of the challenges then to be addressed by Korea to ensure a more thriving community of digital nomads?
Well, Chang-yeon just mentioned that Korea actually already has a lot to offer, but still fostering an environment that's really friendly to the digital nomad lifestyle is one of the major tasks that tag along with policies that simplify the stay in Korea. So maybe more 24-hour working spaces is what some pundits say, especially due to the time difference again. More English language menus at restaurants, as the case for digital nomads is different compared to students who come to learn the Korean language or travelers, short-time travelers, who often go to places that already are visited frequently by tourists and have a lot of English language on it. And racial discrimination is also an issue that needs to be addressed. In fact, CNN in an article on Korea's digital nomad visa cited the results of a study by the National Human Rights Commission, according to which, as of March 2020, 7 out of 10 immigrants in Korea said racial discrimination exists in Korea's society. And back to the workation visa, although it's been just 2 months since its enforcement, a challenge is to actually get a substantial number of people apply and get accepted for the visa program, as the income requirement, as we mentioned before, is likely to make maybe some aspiring digital nomads give up in the first place. So maybe, as Chang-yeon mentioned, lowering that criteria would also be a challenge. And another challenge the government faces is that more and more young Koreans that are often described as the MZ generation wish to work abroad, and in many cases it's high qualified job seekers that choose a career overseas over a job at a top conglomerate in Korea. So while Korea aims to attract more digital nomads to the country, it'll also be a task to keep young Koreans in Korea or make them become digital nomads abroad to working for a Korean company or other place.
Right. Chang-yeon, this is an impromptu question, but among the people on your platform, the digital nomads there, what suggestions have they made to perhaps make South Korea a more attractive destination for digital nomads, generally speaking?
Oh, they often talk about the apps, the online services, because if you don't have a Korean number or Korean bank account, you have so much hurdles to use, like Kakao Taxi or a lot of apps like delivery service like Coupang or Baemin. And this is the convenience lifestyle Korean could offer, but foreigners cannot access to this unless they have a visa, like an ARC card. So this is the really interesting topic of how we could solve this, because a lot of services are around these challenges. So I think having a visa is important, but having solving this like infrastructure problem is also very important.
Right. I really have to agree with that because I have a F4 visa here in Korea as I'm a German citizen, but even for me, like 10 or 20 years ago, it was really difficult to just log into some, social media service, for instance. But that has changed over the years. So I believe it's going to be a task for the government to make that also available for short time or digital nomad visa applicants.
Right, hopefully in the near future then. So very briefly, what more can you tell us about the competition that Korea faces in its hopes to host more digital nomads?
Well, there are already established countries that are places that digital nomads really want to travel to. So I got a question for you, Sunny. Can you guess any countries among a list of top 10 countries for digital nomads for year 2024?
With the exception of South Korea?
Yes, South Korea is unfortunately not yet on the list.
All right, I'm assuming some countries in Southeast Asia then, where the pace of life is leisurely?
Actually, no. Southeast Asian countries are really nice places to go for travel. But in terms of digital nomads, favorite digital nomad countries, no Asian countries are in the top 10. We've got Spain, followed by Argentina and Romania, and other countries are the UAE, Croatia, and Portugal. And also, I think many of these, although they are generally nice places to travel to, there's also a list of easiest countries with digital nomad visas for remote work. And there we have St. Lucia, Georgia, and Cape Verde in the top 3. And again, in the top 10, there's no Asian country. So with that, I think it's going to be a really tough competition for Korea, but we have just started with the implementation of the new visa, so that could be a beginning. And also recently, Japan has also announced to jump on the bandwagon. So I think maybe, as Jong-eun mentioned, to become the digital nomad destination in Asia, we could now start to promote a lot to become one of the top 10.
Right, and speaking about promotion then, Chung-eun, what is your community planning to do to better support digital nomads here in the country?
So to make a Korean digital nomad hotspot, we're focusing on community and service aspect. So first, I believe building a welcoming community is the first and most important thing to attract digital nomads. So we're trying to create events and create environment for digital nomads to easily connect to each other and also have like synergy from that, also meet local community from there. On the service aspect, we're providing workation program called Hop-In, and workation program across the country called Hop-In. It's a program designed for digital nomads to work and travel together, and it includes accommodation and co-working space and travel experience together. And as part of Hop-In, we also run a co-working and co-living space called Hop-In House in Hongdae Yeonnam-dong area. So we aim to create a home away from home for digital nomads and a place for them to connect to each other. And it's also open 24 hours, so it's kind of great for people who have to work late.
Right, it's great to know, Chung-eun. It's great to know. Yeah. Thank you so much for your endeavors.
Thank you.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for this edition. So thank you very much for your time and your thoughts. And Chung-eun, as always, thank you very much for what you said.
Thank you.
Right, well, that is all the time we have for this edition of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching. See you same time tomorrow.